regret having a baby 2 years ago, even though my life is normal now. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lives on Reddit. Don't forget to subscribe to be a for lifer. Trigger warning, childbirth, trigger warning, pregnancy, trigger warning, body image or body horror. I'm describing pregnancy and childbirth in graphic detail. You've been warned. Long read. Hello there, I'm a 27-year-old child-free woman. I can't honestly use that title in good conscience as I've given birth before 2 years ago next month. Sometime before that, I was a year into a hormonal Mirena IUD and had just moved in with my boyfriend of now 5 years. Had my IUD placement checked after a year and everything was supposedly fine. I never got strong periods, and once I got the IUD, they stopped completely, so I never thought anything of it. I ended up back at the doctor due to cramping and suspected ovary pain when she tells me that I'm pregnant. They do an ultrasound to confirm, and not only am I pregnant, I'm about 24 weeks. Girl, had I been there last week, I still could have gotten an abortion in my state, Illinois, but now it was too late. So instead, she had to remove my obviously shifted IUD and set me up with prenatal care. Sorry, I guess? The first thought in my mind while I was sitting there was sheer confusion. I was 5'10", 130 pounds. I did not look freshly 6 months pregnant. I had gained a few pounds from the stress of the move, but they weren't remotely unwelcome. I did not feel any symptoms. I played along with the doctor because, well, yeah, I wanted to drink enough alcohol to kill a mammoth and fall down some stairs so badly. However, realistically, I knew I couldn't do that and I didn't want to hurt this baby to the point where it was homicide. I didn't like the idea that I was carrying an actual baby. The second thought in my mind was of how much I didn't want to be pregnant and give birth. I don't think I'm tocophobic, I just really had never wanted to experience either of those things, and now I was forced to at such an inconvenient time. The third thought I had was of my boyfriend, 34-year-old male, 32 then. We were both staunchly child-free, and this realization didn't change that at all. We'd been dating almost 3 years at this point, and I was confident we could make it through this. But he would be as upset as I am right now. We had a few-hour discussion in the car full of tears that ended in a promise to stay strong through this. After that, we called his uncle. His uncle was 41 years old then, and his partner was 39. They had wanted a child for years, but also had trouble adopting in the past due to being gay. They could easily legally take this baby so that it stays in the family, has a good life, and even looks kind of like them. Luckily, they were ecstatic and definitely wanted this baby, but we would have put it up for adoption had they not been. We couldn't care for this child properly, and I know in my heart I could never love her. People are lying to you when they say that getting pregnant will make you change your mind. I didn't feel any love towards this baby at all, only indifference and anger. I felt judged by everyone who knew me. Family, friends, co-workers. Imagine being pregnant and letting people know you aren't keeping the baby. And I was lucky because in my case, she was staying in the family. My mom already had grandchildren, but my boyfriend is an only child and his mom wanted them so badly. This is one thing I felt truly bad about not giving her, so at least she gets to see her technical grandkids still. Women can't ever catch a break, and I guarantee I was judged more harshly than my partner, who contributed the same amount to the situation. I think the reason I wasn't showing at first was because I'm tall. Sometimes, even skinny, tall women carry their pregnancies more vertically with the baby further back. One day, a week after I went to the doctor, the baby shifted from that position overnight. I felt it move, and I suddenly looked how I was supposed to. My stomach now protruded at the bottom along with my belly button, and it repulsed me. I felt trapped inside of my own body because I never wanted this. I didn't have time to prepare for it. Due to the baby shifting, I could now feel it move too, and it felt like I had a snake moving inside of me. I still had almost 4 months of this to deal with. Over the next 6 weeks, as I got larger, I felt even more dysphoria and discomfort. I was aware that I had a growing baby stretching my already big abdomen almost every waking moment. I was skinny too, so it looked especially profound. At 40 weeks, I wanted to unalive myself. Looking back, I don't think I was too much bigger than the average heavily pregnant woman, but it didn't feel that way at the time. As the days went by, I was beginning to regret the situation more and more. Why couldn't I just have never been intimate? My boyfriend would barely look at me during the pregnancy. He'd been an incredibly good sport about the whole thing and had been bending over backwards to care for me, but I could tell he didn't want to acknowledge what was going on, so he wasn't looking at me. We were rarely intimate in a way that wasn't the back door because my swollen breast and the baby bump tweaked him out. I guess I couldn't blame him. I didn't like it either. I hated my sore discolored breast that leaked. I hated my swollen abdomen with the world's freshest stretch marks. I hated my body for allowing this to happen. I decided to forego the hospital and just hire a midwife to assist me in the birth at home. I kind of didn't care if I died at childbirth at this point, and it was so much cheaper. I didn't want to waste money on any form of medical pampering. I just wanted to get it over with, like pulling out a tooth. After an agonizing last couple of days being extremely pregnant, I finally went into labor. My vulva felt like it was on fire, but in an achy way, and it was already super sore. The bump was really tight and the contractions felt like pressure that radiated around my lower stomach and down my inner thighs. I knew that best case, this would take a few hours, and worst case, a few days. I just wanted this baby out of me and to move on with my life, but I was stuck here until God knows when. I felt so inhuman and exposed every time the midwife stuck her hand inside of my body to check for dilation. 1 centimeter, 3 centimeters, 6 centimeters, not nearly fast enough. My boyfriend was sweet enough to stay with me, but I felt so disgusting I wasn't even sure if I wanted him to be there. He gets to remain clothed and dignified while I writhe here with my pants off. My body isn't even mine right now, and I will continue to be exposed and prodded in a violating way. 8 centimeters, 9 centimeters. I had my boyfriend stick his hand inside of me to check this time because at a certain point, I was sure I was 10 centimeters dilated. The baby moves a little downward and you feel an intense need to spread your legs and push because of the pressure on your cervix. I pushed a few times before getting the okay and reached down to touch where I thought the head would be, but it wasn't even near crowning yet. All you can do at this point is keep pushing and hope the baby comes down faster. Then I was crowning for a little over half an hour. I'll never forget the awful sensation of my legs never feeling like they're pried apart enough while the midwife slid her fingers around my baby's head, stretching the outside of my hoo-ha. I tried not to scream, but I don't think I succeeded. This is the worst part of childbirth, I think. Here I am, paralyzed in pain with my legs splayed open. A woman has her hands inside of my hoo-ha and it's about to split in half by a 6 to 11 pound baby. Meanwhile, all my boyfriend has to do is stand there and watch me with pity. I was extremely angry with him in that moment just for being born male. Sure, this affects both of us, but not equally right now, and never physically. 2 hours after I started pushing, the baby's whole head finally passed through and the body followed in the next 10 minutes. I was worried if it took longer, the midwife would start shoving her hands inside of me again. There were only a few minutes of relief before I had to birth the placenta and it hurt more than I expected. They push down hard on your uterus while tugging on the cord, and that's where the pain comes in. And just when it subsides, you receive stitches on your perineum. Luckily, I barely tore, so I only needed 4. The baby was 10 pounds, 7 ounces, and I cursed being tall and having to push that baby that big out. Now, finally, after they made sure I wasn't gonna die, I got to relax. My body felt broken and like it wasn't mine, hollow and disfigured, leaky. I still looked pregnant and I would for a few months. I bled for so long I lost count, but at least wearing pads all the time let me put witch hazel astringent on my sore hoo-ha. The predicament wasn't over after the birth yet because I had to keep the baby for 2 weeks. The parents wanted me to nurse a little. I felt creepy and uncomfortable every time I had to get the baby to latch onto my breast, and it was the worst experience. The day after we handed her off for good was one of the best days for me in recent history. It's been 2 years and I'm finally getting back to normal, although it freaks me out that this baby is almost 2 years old now and is starting to talk. My relationship is good. We couldn't even be intimate for 6 months, and then it took another 6 months to be comfortable and to stop thinking about my boyfriend putting his hand in my hoo-ha to check my cervix during birth. I still fear another pregnancy though, and that keeps me from enjoying intimacy to the extent that I'd like to. I recently told my partner he has to get a vasectomy or I would become increasingly paranoid and never be intimate with him again, and he obliged. If he didn't, I would have left him. Anyone who would see their significant other tearing their hoo-ha, pushing out a baby, and not get snipped so it doesn't happen again isn't worth it, and I'm glad I found someone who is. 3 lessons to be taken away from this, child-free folks. 1. If you have an IUD, hormonal birth control, depot, etc., take a pregnancy test every month or 2 to be safe. Don't go 6 months without checking, even if it seems trivial. Next time you find yourself thinking you don't have to, remember this girl on Reddit telling you how much it hurts to give birth when you don't want to. 2. Make sure you and your significant other are on the same page if someone gets pregnant. When I told my boyfriend, it was an instant agreement that this was not going to be our baby. You need to be certain that your significant other is on your team and shares your views, or something like this will wreck your relationship. And finally, women have it so much harder than men in reproduction. 2 years ago for my boyfriend is a time we made a mistake and is why his uncle has a toddler now. 2 years ago for me is the summer I spent with the messy body recovering from carrying a baby, giving birth, and breastfeeding. It was traumatic and my body will never be the same despite having an easy pregnancy. And this is after messing around with different types of birth control that can frick with their body. This kind of thing carries so much more weight for women, and it's why I hate when pro-life nitwits say, just give it up for adoption, like childbirth is a cakewalk. I normally just lurk, and this community makes me feel like less of a monster for not liking kids and not loving a baby I gave birth to like a parent. I'm glad she has a good life, but I would have preferred she had never existed, and I regret having this trauma done to my body. There will always be a kid out there that I created, and I have to live with that fact. Feel free to ask me anything and stay safe or protected out there. Edit to address a few questions. First, the only birth control method I was using at the time was my Mirena IUD, and it had shifted. In the ultrasound, you could literally see the crooked IUD next to the baby. It was crooked, not expelled, so I didn't feel the strings move. The pregnancy was healthy, so they couldn't do anything about it. Next, I didn't get an abortion because I was just past the legal limit and couldn't afford any drastic alternatives. Plus, I didn't look pregnant then, and I don't think the reality of the situation hit me until a week later when I had a visible bump and could feel a baby kicking. Third, the little girl, Kim, is going to be 2 next month, and she's incredible. The parents will tell her in a few years that her cousin she sees a few times a year are actually her bio parents, and we'll take it from there. She does look like a dead ringer for me, except with dark hair, so I can see her figuring it out as well. Fourth, why did I give birth at home? Honestly, I was just super done with the whole pregnancy situation and didn't want any fuss about it. I also wanted to be in my own bed with just minimal medical personnel and my partner there. The less people looking at my hoo-ha, the better. It took about 24 hours total from my water breaking to birthing the baby. I lived, but let's just say I don't ever want to go through that nightmare again. And finally, why did I nurse? I could have pumped, but it seemed like less fuss to go straight to the source. Plus, in some weird way, I thought spending a little time with the baby would help me cope with the situation, but I was wrong. Nursing sucked and was just a constant reminder of my uncomfortable body. I was glad when I stopped having to have a baby attached to my nipple half the day. Whoa, 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 whoa. Don't leave. Subscribe. Be a for lifer. Ooh, ooh.